20 million tons of grain trapped behind a war zone, global food prices spiking by 40%. The Black Sea blockade of 2022 wasn't just about Ukraine, it was about feeding the world. July 22, 2022, Istanbul, Turkey. 4 delegations meet under United Nations oversight: Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, the UN Secretary General. One goal: open a maritime corridor through an active war zone. The Black Sea Grain Initiative begins. But this isn't a peace deal. It's a fragile arrangement where missiles and cargo ships share the same waters, one sea, gateway to 3 Ukrainian ports. Would you risk sailing through it? Black Sea Doctrine breaks down how economics and naval power collided in the world's most dangerous shipping lane. February 24, 2022. Russia launches full-scale invasion. Within 72 hours, Ukrainian ports are under naval blockade. Odessa, Chornomorsk, Pivdeny, all access cut. The Russian Black Sea Fleet controls the waters. Mines deployed across shipping approaches. Warships patrol the coast. Commercial vessels trapped in port. Ukraine produces enough grain to feed 400 million people. Wheat, corn, sunflower oil, all landlocked. Global markets react immediately. Wheat futures jump 28% in 1 week. Cooking oil prices reach record highs. Countries dependent on Ukrainian exports face shortages. Egypt imports 80% of its wheat from the Black Sea region. Lebanon, Tunisia, Yemen. Food security collapses across North Africa and the Middle East. This is what happens when naval warfare meets global supply chains. The blockade isn't accidental, it's strategic. Russia weaponizes food access, leverage against sanctions, pressure on European support for Ukraine, control over global commodity markets. The Black Sea becomes the choke point for world hunger. May 2022. International pressure mounts. The United Nations warns of famine. Turkey offers to mediate. President Erdogan sees an opportunity. Turkey controls the Turkish Straits, the Bosporus and Dardanelles, the only exit from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. Turkish neutrality becomes the key. Who controls the Black Sea? A. Russia. B. Ukraine and NATO. C. Turkey holds the key. Comment now. Negotiations take 2 months, every detail contested. Safe corridors through mined waters, inspection protocols for vessels, insurance guarantees for shipping companies, Russian demands, Ukrainian security concerns, Turkish oversight mechanisms. July 22nd arrives. The deal is signed. 3 Ukrainian ports reopen under strict conditions. Ships must follow designated corridors. No military vessels allowed. Joint Coordination Center established in Istanbul. Russian, Ukrainian, Turkish, and UN inspectors monitor every vessel. The system is complex. Outbound ships loaded with grain must be inspected before departure. Inbound empty vessels inspected upon arrival. Teams board each ship, check manifests, search cargo holds. Verify no weapons aboard. The process takes hours per vessel, but it works. August 1, 2022, the first ship departs, the Rizzoni, Sierra Leone flagged bulk carrier, 26,000 tons of corn, destination Lebanon. The vessel navigates through cleared sea lanes. Turkish naval escorts provide security. Russian warships watch from distance. 48 hours later, the Rizzoni clears Turkish waters. The corridor is open. Black Sea Doctrine tracks the vessels that followed. By September, 100 ships move through the corridor. Grain exports resume at 60% of pre-war levels. Wheat prices begin to stabilize. The system proves fragile but functional. Then the attacks begin. September 2022. Russian missile strikes hit port infrastructure in Odessa. Grain terminals damaged. Loading operations disrupted. Moscow claims strikes target military facilities. Kyiv calls it deliberate sabotage of the grain deal. The corridor survives, but tensions escalate. October 29, 2022. Ukrainian naval drones attack Sevastopol, the headquarters of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Multiple vessels damaged. Russia immediately suspends participation in the grain initiative. Ships stranded mid-transit. Insurance rates spike, 4 days of crisis. November 2nd. Russia rejoins the deal, but conditions change. Inspection times increase, delays multiply. The message is clear. The corridor exists at Russia's discretion. Winter 2022. Operations slow, storms in the Black Sea, reduced daylight hours. Inspection backlog grows, ships wait days for clearance. By January 2023, only 2 to 3 vessels depart daily. The bottleneck costs Ukraine $300 million per month in lost exports. The Kremlin extends the deal in 60-day increments. Each extension becomes a negotiation. Russia demands sanctions relief, access to international banking for agricultural exports, fertilizer shipment guarantees. The grain deal becomes leverage for everything else. But what happened in the Sebastopol raid shocked naval commanders. March 2023. Tensions peak. Russian forces launch intensified strikes against Ukrainian port cities. Odessa hit by Caliber cruise missiles. Grain silos destroyed, port cranes damaged, civilian infrastructure targeted. The pattern is deliberate: degrade export capacity, make the corridor unusable even if it remains nominally open. Insurance companies respond, war risk premiums double. Some carriers refuse Black Sea routes entirely. Ukrainian grain sits in warehouses. Shipping costs eat into already thin margins. Farmers can't sell crops. The next planting season threatened. Black Sea Doctrine examines what this means for global food systems. Ukraine isn't just another exporter, it's the backup supply when other regions fail, when droughts hit Australia, when India restricts exports, when climate shocks disrupt harvests. The world turns to Ukrainian grain. Without it, there's no buffer, no reserve. Prices spike, shortages spread, instability follows. May 2023, the deal extends again, but cracks widen. Russia demands connection of Russian Agricultural Bank to SWIFT, removal of restrictions on Russian ammonia exports, access to European ports for Russian grain. Ukraine refuses concessions that benefit Russian war economy. The United Nations mediates desperately, each extension shorter than the last. June 2023, inspection numbers decline. Russian officials slow approvals. Ships wait 12 to 15 days for clearance. The corridor functions at 20% capacity. Turkish President Erdogan travels to Moscow, talks with Putin, attempts to save the agreement, promises to address Russian concerns. The diplomatic effort fails. Is this pushing NATO closer to direct involvement? Comment Y or N. July 17, 2023. Russia announces withdrawal from the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Effective immediately. No more inspections. No more safe passage guarantees. The corridor collapses. Overnight, grain shipments cease. 20 vessels caught mid-transit. Some turn back. Others risk proceeding without Russian guarantees. The gamble is real. Russian warships patrol actively. Mines remain in coastal waters. One wrong navigation decision means disaster. July 19, 2023. Russia declares, any ships approaching Ukrainian ports will be considered legitimate military targets. The Black Sea becomes a no-go zone for commercial shipping. Ukraine responds, announces own maritime corridor along Romanian territorial waters. Hugging the western Black Sea coast, avoiding Russian-controlled areas. The route is longer, more expensive, capacity limited, but it's the only option. Insurance companies refuse coverage. Ship owners demand military escorts. Romania and Bulgaria increase naval patrols. The makeshift corridor begins operations. August 2023. Ukrainian forces strike the Kerch Bridge, Russia's supply line to Crimea, the bridge connecting Crimea to mainland Russia. Sections collapse, rail traffic halted. The message to Moscow. We can disrupt your logistics too. Russia escalates. Massive drone and missile strikes against Odessa. Grain terminals obliterated. Port infrastructure in ruins. Historic city center damaged. UNESCO World Heritage Sites hit. The attacks continue nightly for weeks, 12 straight nights of strikes, every grain facility targeted systematically, 45,000 tons of grain destroyed, storage capacity eliminated. The economic weapon works both ways. By September 2023, Ukrainian grain exports dropped to lowest levels since invasion began, 70% below pre-war volumes. Global wheat prices rise 19%. Cooking oil prices surge. Countries in Middle East and Africa face renewed food insecurity. Egypt negotiates emergency wheat purchases from India and Russia. The dependence shifts. Russia captures market share. Higher prices benefit Moscow's agricultural exports. The blockade pays strategic dividends. Black Sea doctrine tracks the geopolitical shift. Turkey struggles with inflation. Grain costs drive food prices higher. Erdogan faces domestic pressure. But Turkish straits remain open to Russian exports. The neutrality holds. For now, October 2023, Ukraine develops alternative export routes, rail through Poland, Danube River barges through Romania, land routes to Baltic ports, all slower, more expensive, lower capacity, but functional. Farmers adapt, change crop planning, focus on products that can move overland, sunflower oil, processed goods, higher value per ton. The war transforms Ukrainian agriculture. November 2023. Russia proposes new grain deal, different terms. Russian ships escort Ukrainian vessels. Russian inspections at sea. Moscow controls the corridor completely. Ukraine rejects immediately. The proposal is obvious. Legitimize Russian naval dominance. Give Moscow veto over Ukrainian exports. Turn food security into permanent leverage. The diplomatic stalemate continues. December 2023. Winter storms close alternative routes. Danube freezes. Rail capacity maxed out. Baltic ports congested. Ukrainian grain piles up again. Farmers sell at massive discounts to domestic buyers. Export earnings collapse. The economic pressure mounts. What breaks next? The grain deal, Turkish neutrality, or Russian deterrence? January 2024. Small-scale exports resume through Western Corridor. Romanian Navy provides distant escort. Ships transit at night, running dark, minimal communication. The risk is extreme. But economics force the gamble. Grain must move. Farmers must survive. The industry won't wait for diplomacy. By February 2024, a fragile new normal emerges. Reduced exports through dangerous waters, higher costs, lower volumes. The Black Sea corridor that fed 400 million people now operates at fraction of capacity. The consequences ripple globally. Food prices remain elevated. Countries diversify suppliers. Long-term contracts shift to Russia, United States, Canada. Ukraine loses market position that took decades to build. The cost isn't just economic, it's strategic. Ukrainian agricultural exports funded resistance, paid for weapons, supported the war effort. Reduced exports mean reduced capacity to fight. The naval blockade achieves what sanctions couldn't. Pressure on Ukrainian economy, stress on government revenues, questions about long-term sustainability. Black Sea doctrine reveals the doctrine itself. Control the sea, control the exports, control the economy, control the war. The Black Sea isn't just water, it's leverage. Russia proved you don't need to occupy farmland, just block the ports, mine the approaches, make shipping impossible. The effect is the same. Grain trapped, markets disrupted, pressure applied. 1 year after the grain deal collapsed, the situation remains unresolved. Ukraine exports through alternative routes, volumes slowly increase, but Black Sea access remains blocked. Russian warships patrol, mines persist. Commercial shipping stays away. The standoff continues. Will grain exports resume through Black Sea ports? Can Russia maintain its naval blockade indefinitely? Will Turkey eventually choose sides? Will international pressure force a new agreement? Or will alternative routes become permanent? The answers determine more than Ukrainian agriculture. They shape global food security, market stability, economic warfare doctrine. The lessons from the Black Sea grain crisis extend beyond one conflict. They show how modern warfare integrates economic pressure, how strategic choke points matter, how naval power projects beyond sinking ships. The Black Sea Grain Initiative lasted exactly 1 year, July 2022 to July 2023. In that time, 726 vessels moved 32 million tons of grain. The corridor fed millions, stabilized markets, proved cooperation possible even during war. Then it ended, not from military defeat, from strategic calculation. Russia decided the blockade served better than the corridor. The weapon worked. The precedent is set. Future conflicts will remember. Control the choke point, block the exports, weaponize the basics, food, energy, water. The essentials become leverage. The Black Sea showed how. The doctrine spreads. Other regions watch, other navies learn. Other choke points gain value. Hormuz, Malacca, Bab el-Mandeb, Taiwan Strait. Every narrow passage, every strategic waterway, every maritime corridor becomes a potential weapon. This is the future Black Sea doctrine exposes. Naval power isn't about battleships anymore. It's about access, permission, control over who passes, who trades, who eats. The grain deal taught the lesson. The blockade proved the point. 1 sea, 3 ports, 20 million tons. The world held hostage. Subscribe to Black Sea Doctrine, where Black Sea power decides everything.